Hello, my name is Honest Discussioner, and welcome to Profiles on AtheismTV's YouTube channel. I am here with the amazing James Randi, to do an interview here. I am honored to do so. Mr. Randi, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, but if you call me the amazing Randy, our friendship is doomed.
Mr. Randi, then. Let's start out from a broad perspective and work our way down. Tell us about the James Randi Educational Foundation.
Well, the foundation was founded umpteen years ago. It seems like a century, but not quite. It is dedicated to being an information source for the media, for students, for academics, for the press. Well, that's the media, isn't it? For anyone who wants to know more about the so-called paranormal, occult, and supernatural, and we include religious claims in that as well.
Is there anything our audience can do to help out the JREF?
Well, for one thing, we have what is now considered to be the world's leading conference every year in Las Vegas, Nevada. We had 1,642 people, which is quite a crowd to be seated in front of you, especially if they're all skeptical of everything you're going to say. It's rather fearsome, to say the least.
You're referring to the Amazing Meeting, TAM?
Yeah, the Amazing Meeting, we call it, yes. And we replace the I in amazing with an exclamation point, but that's a mere frippery. It's a stylistic thing, and I would ignore it altogether if I were you. So the Amazing Meeting is our annual meeting. We have many more during the year. And I'm just on my way in a few days to Spain, Germany, and Italy. And after I get back from that, I'm off to India. So I move around a great deal, and perhaps that's just as good because they say a moving target is harder to hit.
Now, you started out as an illusionist and a magician. When and how did you decide to dedicate yourself to debunking the supernatural claims of your fellow magicians?
Shortly after I emerged from the womb, I seem to remember. It goes way, way back. Being a magician, that's my profession. And as a magician, or I should say more correctly, a conjurer, I entertain people by lying to them. But I do it the same way any actor does. After all, if a man were out on stage doing Shakespeare's Hamlet and then was taking bows at the end of it and said, "Wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen," took off the blonde wig and then said, "I actually am a prince of Denmark," you'd be totally insulted. Call geeks and people who speak with the dead and such are telling their audiences these days, and they should resist not only believing that, they should resist accepting it, and they should try to do something about it. The James Randi Educational Foundation, or the JREF as we affectionately refer to it as, we are dedicated to doing just that, maintaining a profile among the world's thinkers. And as I say, I travel internationally, and I do this in many, many different countries every year, and I find that it's increasingly accepted. Now, the James Randi Educational Foundation, I should explain this, as well in the same breath, so to speak, is not an atheist organization. We don't require anyone to have any set of beliefs in order to join the JREF, and I don't know what the current number of members is, but it's quite high, I assure you, internationally. But after all, religious claims are supernatural claims. They are paranormal claims. Talking bushes and flying horses and things like this, these things are supernatural by definition, and they don't have any evidence to support them whatsoever, but we include them among the things of which we are critical.
So what do you think about people that claim to be deists, then?
That's an interesting story, and it's a rather awkward thing to handle, just because of this fact that my good friend, who lived to the wonderful age of 94, and I was told by his son just the other day that he was sharp as a tack up to within 20 minutes of his passing. He was a deist, and when I talked to him about it, I said, "Martin, I can't quite understand this. I've known you since I was literally a teenager, and that's a long time ago, as you can imagine. I'll let you subtract teens from 83, and I guess you can do the mathematics. I knew Martin Gardner all that time. He was a dear, very close friend of mine, and I almost said revered friend of mine, but I won't go quite that far. I don't revere anything at this moment. I'm feeling curmudgeonly today. But Martin said to me very plainly, he said, Randy, I haven't got any proof for my position as a deist, not one shred of proof. I have some arguments on it, but I don't have any evidence to support the arguments. He said, your arguments are much better. He said, but I'll tell you, I choose to be a deist, and this is the secret of the whole thing. I choose to be a deist because it makes me feel more comfortable. And anything that made Martin Gardner feel more comfortable was okay with me, and I thoroughly accepted it. So he admitted that he didn't have an argument to support it, but he just preferred to believe that way.
Why don't you tell us about the $1 Million Challenge?
$1 Million Challenge originated quite some years ago now. It's been out for, I guess, about 10 or 12 years. I'm not sure the exact date of it, but I could look it up, and Google knows everything, so I would just click on Google. I do that when I doubt almost anything. The $1 Million prize is available to anyone who can provide evidence of any paranormal power, ability, or performance of any kind under satisfactory observing conditions. Now, people don't like that last bit of a phrase there. They just want to say that they saw a ghost the other day, and I know it was the ghost because I could see through it. It requires a little bit more than that. We have to get together. They have to make application, first of all, through the website, which is www.randy.org. And if they make connection with us that way, they will see exactly how they do it. They have to send in a notarized letter and explain their claimed ability in no more than 2 paragraphs. Now, what I get is literally, and I don't see one immediately, I'm filing them away as fast as I can. I will get applications in here that are as much as 6 and 8 pages long of full-size foolscap, written in a blurry ball pen on both sides of the paper and up and down the margins as well. And usually on the envelope where they mail it, they write on the outside of the envelope as well, because they had a thought just as they got to the post office that they thought they should add. This is not satisfactory. 2 paragraphs should be ample for anyone to explain what ability they have. They don't have to describe every detail of it.
I can bend spoons with my mind.
I can see the future, for example, and here's an example of it. I can tell what the stock market averages are going to be for such and such a time. That statement to make. It shouldn't be that difficult. But they want to go into the whole theory of their lives, the story of when and where they were born and why and under what sign, the names of their parents and such. I don't want to know all that. I just want to know what their claim is, and then we get together by mail or in person or by telephone or by Skype or any means they want to determine what the circumstances of an experiment would be whereby we can examine their claim.
Okay. Did you ever experience a close call with the $1 Million Challenge? Were you ever almost fooled into believing someone's claims were accurate?
Well, I must tell you, first of all, that the tests that we designed for this sort of thing, and it must be done with the cooperation of the person who's making the claims. They're the people who think they know what they can do, or know what they think they can do, or something like that. So they have to determine what the nature of the test will actually be. They have to help us design what the protocol is, and the protocol has got to be designed in such a way that no judging is required. In other words, if they say they can take a set of 20 photographs, we've had tests like this, and they can sort through them and tell us which people are still living and which people are dead. If they can do that, and they can do it with a certain accuracy, and we agree as to what it would be, something like 16 out of 20, for example, would probably be a winning score. They then do it. There's no argument as to whether or not they did it. They can't then take one of the ones in which they were wrong and say, well, I had doubts about this one. No, you have to either say one way or the other. It's yes or no, it's A or B, it's up or down. And they don't like tests like that. They want tests in which they can waffle. And I'm not sure about this, and I'll put this into the half category. I don't want to hear that. They either are living or dead, and the people can be tested very easily for being living or dead.
So, for the most part, yeah, yes, I'll agree with you. How would you feel if someone did actually pass the challenge?
Well, then I would give them $1 million. It's that simple.
Would that?
It's available. It's sitting right here. It's in a special account with an investment house in New York City, and it's held. It gains interest every day, not at a great rate because we've got it very wisely invested. It's currently 1.22 million or something like that, but only $1 million of that is available as the prize. $1 million in negotiable bonds, which are immediately negotiable. They can cash them in immediately. Now, they give you all kinds of arguments, say, well, the bonds aren't worth anything these days. Yes, these are. They're absolutely guaranteed. So there's no argument about it. You don't have to have a decision. You look at the results and you count the number that were correct. You have to re-examine our standards altogether. And not only that, I can get a Nobel Prize out of it, too. And you could as well. So think of that. That's the happy out on the thing if you want. Now, it's also been said, and I should add this during this discussion, that I have said that I always have an out. Now, this has been quoted of me for years and years now. This originated with a chap, Dennis Rollins, who I believe is still alive and well, living, I believe, someplace in California, but I'm not sure. Dennis Rollins has quoted me as saying that, and I did say that. And what he doesn't do is he doesn't quote the whole statement. I always have an out. I'm right. He leaves the I'm right off the end of it, you see, and he leaves people to believe that I have some devious way of wriggling out of the offer. But that is the complete statement. And I am right. So far, I've been right. But if I were wrong, then I would have a complete change of my philosophy altogether, along with many other people, I'm sure. And the $1 million prize would be granted, certainly. Not gladly, but it would be granted, certainly, because that's the rules, and we stay with the rules.
Now, we both obviously agree with the importance of the work you've done, though you and I might both be a bit prejudiced. That being said, was there ever a time when you felt bad for shattering someone's illusions, that you were...
Every case is different. Every case is quite different from every other one, with different varieties of emotional feelings and reactions to what happens. In most cases, they just sort of slump and they walk away, and as I say, they don't reapply. And that has never been taken up. Oh, another thing that they never apply for. I have said a few years ago now, I said, if you, they've often said, oh, there is no $1 million. You know, he's a liar and a fake, and he's a magician. He always lies to people, so there is no $1 million. Well, that can be proven. And there was a time there where I think every 2 months or so we get a statement from the investment house as to what the total is. And it's a printed out official notarized statement. And I used to make 5 or 6 copies of it and put them in a file drawer in case people wanted to see the proof. And I would easily mail it to them or fax it to them or whatever they wanted. We never, ever had one request for evidence that the prize money actually exists. And yet they will make noises. No, I've checked up there. There's no such thing. It's all a lie. There is no $1 million. But we have the evidence of it. These people don't want to know evidence. They want to have opinions and they want to express them, but they don't want to see the evidence. No one has ever applied to see the notarized statement that we have from the investment house.
If I may be so bold, that seems like from my perspective, that their attempts to try to make your prize money out to be non-existent seems relatively fruitless. Even if we were to grant them the greatest amount of greatest amount of skepticism allowed, and the prize money didn't exist, how much money would they make out of simply winning your challenge as far as media presence? They'd be famous overnight, as you said earlier. It seems like a bit of a non sequitur to say the money's not there. They'd make millions off of the publicity in the long run.
Yeah, because in all my books and in all my articles and everything that I've published and in all my public appearances, I have talked about the $1 million prize. And this could be shown to be malfeasance, I certainly, they could sue me for having claimed that there is $1 million prize. But no one wants to see the evidence. You see, they'd rather believe that there is no $1 million prize. They take a certain amount of comfort in that, and they advertise it. They're saying constantly there is no such thing as the $1 million prize, and they get a great deal of comfort out of that. But they do not apply for the evidence. As an illusionist, I would often get people and particularly when I did it in a university or a college setting, I would get the academics coming to me afterwards and saying things like, but Mr. Randi, people who believe in this sort of thing, they must be really stupid. Now, I welcome that statement because I want to show them that perhaps the stupidity lies somewhere else. I then will go into their library and say, take a book off the shelf, any book at all, turn to any page, look at a word, or whatever. I do some mentalism stunt that really blows their minds. And mentalism is simply a form of the magician's art, which appears to be done entirely with the mind. Often it is, but there are gimmicks that go along with it, of course, because it's a trick. These are illusions that we present. And some of the mentalism stunts can be absolutely astonishing, and they can just lay you low. I've had that happen when I was a teenager, when a few mentalists pulled stuff on me that I didn't understand at all. It's a little harder to fool me now at the age of 83, but nonetheless, I understand that these things can be flooring to some of the academics, and when they start to do the thing of they're just speechless. I then look them straight in the eye and I say, "Are you stupid?" And they get the message. The message is that people aren't necessarily stupid to fall for the golden words of the people who say they can speak to the dead and bring back Aunt Flossie from beyond the grave, and various things like that. The people like Sylvia Browne and John Edward and James van Praagh, though you probably won't ever hear of him again. He and his like are all over the place. They've made millions, literally millions, much more than the James Randi Educational Foundation has ever had or ever will have, because the money is with the naive folks out there who will give it for some sort of revelation of knowledge that they don't presently have. They're the people who are going to fund the frauds out there.
Do you feel more comfortable behind the writer's desk, whether it's a book or a blog post or anything of that nature, or do you feel more comfortable when you're on stage?
Well, I don't see much difference, frankly. I sit down at the computer here and with my files, and I work on my next book, A Magician in the Laboratory, my 10th book, that is, and I'm currently refining it and boiling it down to something that can be published rather than just sent out electronically. That can be done, but the printed book to me is much more, at the moment I'm an old-fashioned guy. Actual printed book to me is more valuable than something available on Kindle, for example. And again, I admit that's my weakness. I think I'll get over it eventually if I live long enough. I feel very comfortable both on stage talking about it and doing demonstrations, as I do before audiences very, very frequently. I'm feeling comfortable in both guises, but I seem to have some sort of gift for writing. And oh, by the way, here's one of the more pertinent books. Can you see it there? Yes, you can.
The Faith Healers. We'll put a link in the underbar to. This is currently for sale?
Oh yes, it's still out there, The Faith Healers, with a foreword by Carl Sagan. Really carefully, because he was maybe afraid to be associated with a trickster, but we got to be very good friends, and we had many wonderful moments, both in Cornell and at his home, and in various places that we met around the world.
He's one of the few people I can listen to without caring what the words are coming out of his mouth. It's automatic poetry.
Well, my current deity, if I have a deity, and I certainly don't, is Richard Dawkins, of course, because anyone who can, what a wonderful position he had at Oxford University. I mean, just wonderful. A professor for the public understanding of science. Only the English could come up with something like this, I think. That's ingenious. What a wonderful position to have. And Richard and I have been friends for years now, and he has been very generous with the James Randi Educational Foundation, and we have tried to do likewise with his foundation. We certainly agree on a lot of things, but when he comes out with something in an Oxfordian accent, can't do that. And I must give you my little imitation of Richard when you ask him a question. I'm talking about an audience question now. He will stand there and listen carefully, and then he will do this. And then he'll give you his answer. I'm sure that that brain of his forms the thing up into maybe 2 paragraphs in his head. I swear he can see it the way you can see it on a computer screen in his head, and he delivers it, and then he turns to the next question. If more people would pause before they answer, as Richard Dawkins does, I don't. I blurt something out right away. I'm that kind of guy, I guess. But Richard Dawkins is so dignified and so concise the way he does it. He's a wonderful person to see, and I have actually had the privilege of sitting on stages with him, having discussions and answering questions from the audience. That's a thrill that not too many people get.
What about the late Professor Dr. Hitchens? Did you have any contact with him? How did you feel?
I knew Christopher very well, and I call him Christopher because he hated Chris. He wanted to be called Christopher. So, Christopher, if you're there, I don't expect he went this way if he went. I'm sure he went that way. Hitchens was very hard-nosed, and he was confrontational. There's no question of it, but he was more angry than he was annoyed. I mean, he was really angry at some of the things, and I am too. I'm sure we all are to a certain extent.
I'm in that camp as well. What do you think about then Sam Harris?
Sam Harris, I've only met Sam very briefly. I think at one of the TED meetings. That's the TED meetings. You know about those, do you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's Technology, Education, and Design. And yes, I met him. We had a brief chat. But I've not gotten to know Sam very well. I get all of his bulletins and such, and I'm happy to receive them, of course. But a great thinker and a good writer.
So then just to round it out, what about Daniel Dennett?
We've been accused of being related. I think that's probably embarrassing to him because he's sort of like a 2.5 times version of me. I'm a short little guy, getting shorter because of scoliosis. Don't get scoliosis. It shortens you down, you see.
I'll do my best.
We won't go into the details of that. Daniel Dennett and I, well, he did a wonderful thing from his hospital bed a few years back where he talked about the fact that people were writing him and thanking God and whatnot. No, thank the surgeons who saved my life. And they did, as I've done with me as well. Colon cancer and a double bypass. And a few things like that have put me on the table in front of the surgeons, and something that people are not giving very much dependence on these days. It's called medical science. You may have heard of it, and believe me, it works. I would not be here. I just came back from the hospital after a small process here, and no problem at all. Medical science works. Not perfectly, no. It never claimed to be perfect, but it's getting better day by day, and it's much better than sitting hand to the sky, I can tell you that.
I agree with you. I am trying to get into the habit of not only thanking the doctors, but everyone that led up to those doctors' knowledge, because they couldn't have done it on their own.
Exactly, exactly.
Are there any other people in the atheist community that you have a great deal of respect for, other than the men we've already mentioned?
Well, I'm looking up at a picture of Martin Gardner on the wall here, in front of the Alice statue in Central Park. And every morning I come into this room in my office. I've counted them, 27 steps away from my bedroom. And I come in and I say, "Good morning, Martin," because I'm a crazy old son of a bitch. I mean, I don't believe that got across to Martin. He's gone. But I've got his books on the shelf, and everything he wrote was was a gem. And, you know, people like Isaac Asimov, our library is named, it's almost 4,000 books now, is named the Isaac Asimov Library. And I owe a great deal to Isaac, too.